Meghan Markle has been dumped again by her agent this time, who just so happens to be the most powerful agent in all of Hollywood.
The Sussex brand is no longer just showing cracks. By April 10th, 2026, it is looking like a glossy empire that has started collapsing under the weight of its own bad moves, blown chances, and fading influence. The same entertainment world that once welcomed Harry and Meghan like prize trophies now seems to be meeting them with something much colder, much harsher, and far more dangerous than open criticism: indifference. The Montecito image that once made them look like the most desirable royal transplants in Santa Barbara has reportedly shifted into something far less glamorous. What used to feel like elite status now looks more like professional isolation, and people who understand image, branding, and power games are not shocked by it at all. In fact, one of the clearest signs of this decline is the silence surrounding Oprah Winfrey, the very woman who gave them the stage for what was supposed to be their grand break from the palace. That 2021 interview was presented like a defining moment, almost like their public declaration of freedom. But now, many critics see it less as a truth-telling landmark and more as a reputational mess that came back to haunt one of the most powerful women in media. Behind the scenes, there has long been chatter that Oprah may have felt misled, especially after several major claims from that sit-down began to fall apart under scrutiny. The biggest problem was the claim that Harry and Meghan were married in secret 3 days before the public royal wedding. That story drew huge attention, but it was later publicly contradicted by the Archbishop of Canterbury himself. For a media icon whose brand has always been tied to credibility, depth, and emotional truth, being linked to a story later challenged so directly was never going to sit well. That is why the silence matters so much. The woman who once offered them one of the biggest platforms of their lives is now rarely linked to them at all. And in Hollywood, silence can hit harder than any brutal headline. It is not loud, but it sends the message anyway. Things reportedly became even worse when the couple's relationship with WME quietly faded from the spotlight. That matters because WME is not some small player trying to stay relevant. It is one of the most powerful talent agencies in the business, and Ari Emanuel is not known for rewarding chaos, excuses, or high-maintenance drama. Reports suggested that tensions boiled over during Thanksgiving in 2025, when Meghan was allegedly upset that agency staff were not available around the clock during a major American holiday. That kind of behavior, if true, would have landed badly anywhere, but especially in an industry already questioning what exactly the Sussexes were delivering compared to what they demanded. Palace critics had long pushed the image of difficult behavior behind closed doors, and now some in Hollywood appear to be echoing the same pattern. The result, according to the narrative now circulating, is that the Sussex brand started looking less like a golden opportunity and more like a draining obligation. Without the force of a top agency pushing, defending, and negotiating on their behalf, Harry and Meghan appear far more exposed. And that exposure becomes impossible to ignore when major partnerships stop producing real momentum. Their Netflix arrangement, once hyped as a game-changing media venture, now gets described in softer industry language like delayed, stalled, or quietly shelved. But everybody in that world knows what those phrases usually mean. At the same time, even the media tone around them has started changing. For years, outlets like US Weekly often carried softer, more sympathetic coverage of the couple, especially when the story centered on their struggles with the monarchy. But after leadership changes, the tone reportedly shifted, and that shift was brutal. Instead of dressing up every setback as misunderstood genius, newer coverage began treating their troubles as signs of a larger pattern. That is where the real damage sets in. Because once the press stops selling the myth, people start looking at the output itself. Spotify struggled, Netflix slowed. The grand image of Harry and Meghan as unstoppable creative forces began to clash with a simpler and much less flattering question. Where is the work? Where is the vision? Where is the consistent high-level content that matches the size of the deals and the scale of the hype? To answer that, their camp appears to have pushed a new excuse, and critics have torn into it hard. Meghan has reportedly suggested that part of the reason their projects feel delayed, restrained, or less daring is because she is now carefully editing everything to avoid crossing lines with the British monarchy. In other words, the lack of sharp output is being reframed as discipline, caution, and royal-minded restraint. But that defense has not gone over well with commentators who remember the couple's past attacks on the institution. To many critics, it sounds deeply inconsistent. They spent years presenting themselves as people finally free to speak, free to reveal, free to challenge palace rules. Yet now, the same royal framework is being used as a reason for silence, delay, and underwhelming content. That contradiction is exactly why so many people are mocking the explanation instead of buying it. One episode that really fueled that criticism involved Kris Jenner's 75th birthday celebration, which reportedly overlapped with Remembrance Sunday in the United Kingdom. Harry and Meghan were said to have attended the star-studded event, but when attention turned to possible party photos, reports claimed their team wanted images of them kept off social media. The official idea, according to this line of reporting, was respect for the solemn royal moment back in Britain. But commentators were quick to question that explanation. Critics argued that this was not about deep respect for the crown at all. It was about optics. It was about not wanting images of party glamour and celebrity fun colliding online with solemn scenes of King Charles and Prince William honouring the fallen. That is not the same thing as reverence. That is damage control. And that is what makes this whole rebrand feel so shaky. Time and again, the monarchy is treated like a shield when it helps, a target when it sells, and a moral excuse when the headlines turn ugly. In 2026, that game seems to be wearing thin. The victim narrative that once helped fuel their rise in America is no longer hitting with the same force, because audiences have heard it before, and now they want results. Even Meghan's reported ambitions in luxury fashion appear to have hit resistance. There was talk, chatter, and endless speculation about interest from powerhouse labels like Dior, Gucci, and Balenciaga. But the reality many insiders describe is much less dazzling. Instead of blockbuster deals, there have reportedly been polite distances, cautious decisions, and brands choosing stability over association with ongoing controversy. That makes sense in a world where legacy houses protect image above everything. These companies do not just sell clothes, bags, or style. They sell permanence, heritage, and controlled prestige. Any public figure seen as unpredictable, divisive, or overexposed comes with risk, and right now that risk appears to be outweighing the sparkle. So by April 10th, 2026, the picture looks painfully clear. Harry and Meghan are no longer moving through Hollywood like royal disruptors with endless leverage. More and more, they look like a cautionary case of what happens when fame outruns substance, when grievance runs longer than creativity, and when celebrity branding starts replacing the very foundation that once made the story matter in the first place. Now, a fresh line of defense is reportedly coming out of Montecito, and it is one of the most ironic turns yet. Faced with shrinking circles, fading momentum, and projects that no longer generate the same excitement, the couple appear to be leaning on what some royal watchers call the royal standard excuse. The message is simple. They are not slow because they are stuck. They are slow because they are principled. But that claim has landed with a thud among industry observers who say the real issue is far less noble. Once the family drama stopped delivering shock value, there was not enough strong material left to keep the machine running at full power. And that is why even outlets once seen as loyal now seem more willing to question the California fairy tale and peel back the shine from the Sussex dream. The latest Sussex media push is being read by critics as a slick attempt to stop the brand collapse talk before it gets even worse. After a harsh wave of coverage, their side reportedly used US Weekly to float a fresh excuse, claiming Meghan is struggling not because of weak output, but because she refuses to trade royal dignity for cheap attention. That framing is clearly meant to win back sympathy from an American audience that has grown more doubtful of the couple's image. By presenting themselves as too refined, too careful, and too royal for the messy celebrity machine, they appear to be betting that the public will forget the real issue critics keep bringing up, which is simple. Huge contracts, huge promises, and not enough results. The play here is obvious, and commentators have said as much. They want the audience to see two noble figures getting punished by an industry that rewards noise and scandal, instead of two public figures who signed major deals and then failed to produce enough strong material. That is why this royal shield strategy has drawn so much heat. Dan Wootton has been one of the loudest critics of that line, and his argument hits hard. He says you cannot spend years attacking an institution, making money from conflict with it, and then suddenly hide behind its standards when your business ventures start falling flat. To critics, that does not look like integrity. It looks like a scramble. That is where the contradiction gets ugly. Meghan is now being framed as someone protecting the crown by holding back certain projects, but critics were quick to point out that this kind of restraint was nowhere to be seen during the Oprah interview, the Netflix series, or Harry's memoir. So now, when the victim narrative is losing power and the celebrity shine has faded, royal dignity suddenly becomes the excuse. The same issue follows her fashion ambitions. Meghan's camp has long been linked to chatter about major luxury houses like Dior or Balenciaga. The soft version of the story says she is just being selective, refusing deals that do not match her image or her royal standards. But critics say the truth is much more basic and much more brutal. Luxury brands protect stability above all else. They do not want endless drama attached to their image, and they definitely do not want a spokesperson who divides public opinion every other week. So when those rumored deals never turned into anything major, many observers did not see a noble refusal. They saw a rejection. That is why some critics say the Meghan effect has turned into a Meghan liability. Instead of adding prestige, the Sussex name now brings a level of noise that heritage brands may not want anywhere near their carefully managed identity. In that reading, this is not about the royals blocking her. It is about brands making a cold business decision. By April 10th, 2026, that has left Harry and Meghan leaning harder than ever on the monarchy itself. Not as a force they are changing, but as a defense for why momentum has dried up. They are no longer using royal ties to launch bold new projects. Critics say they are using royal ties to explain why the jobs are no longer coming in. That same pattern hangs over Meghan's reported split from WME, and people in the industry see that as a major blow. Losing William Morris Endeavour is not some minor reshuffle. It means losing one of the strongest protection systems in Hollywood, and for someone who built her image around strategic branding, that kind of loss hits deep. What makes it even worse is the silence from Ari Emanuel. In Los Angeles, silence from a power player can say more than any public statement ever could. Critics see that silence as a sign that Meghan is no longer viewed as an investment worth defending at the highest level. That is not just a setback. That is a cold message. The reports around the split only added to the damage. While the Sussex side has tried to frame it as a mutual parting, industry gossip painted it as far messier. One version says the breaking point came around Thanksgiving 2025, when Meghan allegedly became furious that agency staff were not working through the holiday to manage a PR issue. If even half of that is true, critics say it feeds right into the long-running complaints about impossible expectations and diva-style pressure. According to that version of events, Ari Emanuel eventually decided the effort was no longer worth it. Meghan's limited output, paired with a reputation for high demands, reportedly made her a difficult sell even for a powerful machine like WME. And once that backing started slipping, the consequences became visible fast. Without WME's influence, critics say the Sussexes lost their seat at the top Hollywood table. Projects that once looked promising began cooling off or disappearing quietly. Meghan, who once moved with agency-backed protection, now looks far more exposed to an industry that values performance over titles and hard results over image management. That is why some commentators say she has entered her momager phase. Shut out from stronger professional circles, Meghan now appears to be pivoting toward motherhood branding as a softer, more relatable lane. The goal, critics argue, is to skip past the elite gatekeepers and head straight into lifestyle content, domestic storytelling, and the mommy influencer space. But even that move comes with tension. Harry has spent years condemning media intrusion and warning about the exposure of children. So if family life now becomes a bigger part of the brand, critics see an obvious contradiction. What used to be framed as sacred privacy now risks looking like selective visibility when the bigger deals stop paying off. That is why the new back to basics aesthetic has drawn so much suspicion. The polished royal image has been swapped for casual clothes, homey visuals, and carefully curated simplicity. Yet instead of making Meghan seem more authentic, critics say it has made people question her more deeply because the softness feels staged rather than natural. The old chicken coop moment from the Oprah interview is now one of the biggest examples. Back then, it was meant to symbolize freedom, healing, and a humble new life in California. Meghan in boots, standing beside rescued chickens, was supposed to sell a simple message. The princess had become a grounded, everyday woman. But critics now look back at that scene and see something much more calculated. Observers have pointed to how neat, fresh, and camera-ready the whole setup looked. To them, it did not feel like true simplicity. It felt like branded simplicity, carefully arranged to make wealth look humble and privilege look relatable. That is why the scene, once praised by supporters, is now used by critics as proof of a larger credibility problem. That same credibility issue has followed the family content involving Archie and Lilibet. For years, Harry fiercely pushed back against media attention around his children. But now, as major deals shrink and the entertainment path narrows, critics say the children have started becoming a key part of the image strategy, whether the Sussex camp wants to admit that or not. Recent family clips have sparked heavy online analysis, with some commentators pointing to visual inconsistencies and awkward edits. Fair-minded people may see nothing more than normal family footage, but the problem is that trust is already shaky. Once the audience starts questioning every clip, every angle, and every carefully chosen moment, the whole relatable family brand starts to feel forced. That is why critics say this motherhood pivot is not really about warmth or honesty at all. It is about survival. With Spotify gone, Netflix downgraded, and WME no longer acting as a shield, the influencer economy starts looking like the last open lane. And that is the real context behind Meghan's newer appearances, where she is trying to sell the image of a relatable working mother doing school runs and lunchboxes. The Sussex image is not fading quietly anymore. It is slipping in full view, and the cost of keeping that Montecito dream alive looks harder to hide by the day. Critics say that even with nannies, security, and every polished layer of protection around them, the pressure is showing. The private travel, the luxury lifestyle, the constant rebrand, none of it runs on headlines alone. And as the brand weakens, even the family's privacy is being discussed as part of the public strategy in a way that many people now find uncomfortable. That is why the mood around Harry and Meghan feels so much colder now. The authentic life they once promised is, to many observers, no longer landing as inspiring or fresh. Instead, it looks like a chain of careful reveals, selective appearances, and image pivots that have left audiences worn out. And as April 10th, 2026 approaches, nothing shows that decline more clearly than their latest return to Australia. In 2018, they arrived in Australia as the monarchy's golden pair, greeted with huge crowds, warm energy, and non-stop attention. In 2026, that glow looks badly reduced. The difference between the old royal tour and the new commercial circuit is not just awkward, it is brutal. What once looked like prestige now looks in the eyes of critics like a scaled-down celebrity hustle that the public is meeting with far less excitement. One of the biggest talking points has been Prince Harry's reported speaking fee. A man once rumoured to command massive sums is now being linked to a far smaller figure, around $50,000 for a symposium appearance. That is still a big number to most people, but for a prince with elite-level expenses and a high-cost lifestyle, critics say it tells a very different story. It suggests shrinkage, not growth. The optics got even rougher because Harry was reportedly not the main star of the event, but a replacement after another speaker dropped out in scandal. That detail hit hard. The Duke of Sussex, once sold as a major global figure of duty and service, was suddenly being talked about like a celebrity fill-in on a for-profit stage. For critics, that was more than embarrassing. It was symbolic. The event itself did not help. Reports of high ticket prices, a small venue, and weaker than expected demand only added to the sense that the old Sussex draw is no longer what it used to be. Australian media, never shy when the gloves come off, leaned into that hard. What once felt exclusive now looked overpackaged and underpowered. Commentators were just as blunt about the marriage dynamic. In 2018, Harry was widely seen as the main attraction, with Meghan adding glamour and novelty. In 2026, critics say that balance has flipped. Meghan now appears to be driving the money-making moves, especially with her push into motherhood and lifestyle branding, while Harry looks more like the support act in her latest commercial lane. That is the part some royal watchers say would have been unthinkable a few years ago. Meghan's women-focused speaking events and soft domestic image are being framed as a smarter route into the influencer economy, while Harry's appearances seem less central and less powerful. To critics, he no longer looks like the prince setting the direction. He looks like the extra piece in someone else's plan. The reduced staff around the trip added to that impression. Back in 2018, the Sussexes travelled with a much bigger team, packed with aides, handlers, and style support. In 2026, the crew looked much smaller. Familiar names were missing. The operations seemed leaner, and that sparked another round of speculation about weakening influence behind the scenes. In celebrity and royal circles, a shrinking team says a lot. Supporters tried to push back by pointing to charity-linked moments on the trip, including a visit connected to Invictus in Australia, but critics were not convinced. They argued that a short charitable appearance does not cancel out the wider image of luxury hotels, corporate events, and paid visibility. In their view, it looked like a polished way to soften the commercial edge, not erase it. That is why the Australia trip has become such a problem for the Sussex story. It highlighted the gap between the image they want and the reality critics think they see. They no longer come across as royals in exile building something bigger. More and more they look like a mid-level celebrity couple trying to keep a premium image alive while the crowds, deals, and prestige grow thinner. Still, the harshest blow may not have come from Australia at all. According to many royal commentators, it came from the silence of the British monarchy. For years, Harry and Meghan seemed to believe they could remain central to the royal conversation, no matter how far they moved away from the institution. But now, the palace appears to have chosen a colder and far more effective answer: silence. That silence became especially noticeable during King Charles's recent visit to the United States. Despite being in the same country and not especially far from Montecito, there was reportedly no meeting with Harry. Critics say that a mission mattered because it did not look accidental. It looked deliberate. No public drama, no emotional clash, just a line quietly drawn. That is why some royal watchers now describe the palace strategy in very simple terms: ignore and replace. Instead of getting dragged into endless back and forth, the monarchy has continued forward with a tighter, steadier core. William and Catherine remain front and centre, and the institution keeps signalling that it is bigger than any one grievance-filled storyline. That message is landing. Commentators have also pointed to the increased visibility of other reliable royal figures as proof that the family is already adjusting to life without Harry. Whether each rising name becomes permanent or not, the wider point is clear. The monarchy is showing it can function, evolve, and present a future without relying on the Sussexes for relevance. That leaves Harry and Meghan in an awkward no man's land. Critics say they are too controversial for some legacy brands, too distant from Windsor to regain royal trust, and too overexposed to sell authenticity as easily as they once did. The old symbols do not work the same anymore either. What once looked humble now looks staged. What once sounded powerful now sounds defensive. That is why the reported $50,000 fee keeps getting mentioned, why the smaller team keeps getting noticed, and why the king's refusal to meet is being treated like the final correction. Fortress Windsor did not need to fight loudly. It simply kept moving, kept serving, and kept the drama outside the gate. In the eyes of many observers, William and Catherine have won that long game of patience, and that leaves Harry and Meghan still scrambling in Montecito, trying new angles, new explanations, and new branding lanes while the institution they once thought they could pressure has already moved on. The sun really does seem to be setting on the Sussex empire now, and for the first time in years, the monarchy looks focused on what is ahead instead of what is behind it. If you enjoyed this breakdown, like, comment, and subscribe for more royal updates and deeper dives into the stories everyone is talking about.